back? That's one of the questions I want to raise tonight. My first guest is P. Sainath, founder, editor of the People's Archive of Rural India, Magsaysay Award winner, and someone who's tracked the issue of the farmers for years now. Appreciate your joining us, Sainath. The big question now is, after the Supreme Court said that they were holding the implementation or staying the implementation of the farm laws, is it time for the farmers to take a step back and perhaps give this committee appointed by the court time to try and work out a negotiated solution?
I don't think that's the big question at all, Rajdeep. I think you'll go, firstly, what has the court actually done? It has set up something, and I'm quoting from the reports of their judgment, a committee for the purpose of listening to the grievances of farmers relating to the farm laws and the views of the government, and then making recommendations. It also says that the representatives of the farmers' bodies, whether holding a protest or not, whether they support or oppose the laws, shall participate in the deliberations of the committee. Now, first question, what will this committee mediate? Between who and who will they mediate? The farmers do not recognize their credentials and dismiss their credibility. Mediation, Rajdeep, demands mediators who are acceptable, particularly to the aggrieved party, not just to the government. Tomorrow, will these members even be able to go to a Singhu or a Tikri and talk to those they're supposed to mediate with? You know as well as I do what happens next. They will find some farmers union.
One minute. Who will decide then that these members of the committee are credible enough for them to be seen as mediators? Will the farmer unions alone dictate to the Supreme Court or the government of India who the negotiators can be?
Rajdeep, the point I'm saying, you are turning the thing upside down. The basic decent norm of mediation is that the mediators have to be acceptable to all parties, particularly to the aggrieved party. That has answered your question. If they are not acceptable, who will you mediate with? And also I'm saying, you know very well what happens next. They will find some farmers' union representatives with as little credibility as themselves and attempt an aha moment in the media. And there will be powerful sections of the media quite happy with that. After all, the biggest and richest media owner in this country is also the principal beneficiary of these laws. And many outlets that he does not own, he is likely the biggest advertiser. I am questioning the entire idea of this committee. I am still waiting for the court to rule on the constitutionality of these laws, which is the job of the Supreme Court. And also see that legislation is looked at by Parliament. So I think that, you know, you're looking ahead to something on the 26th.
No, I am looking for an end to the deadlock. This has gone on for 50 days. I am looking for ways out to end the deadlock. The farmers have said they want a repeal of the laws. The government is saying we are willing to consider amendments but not a repeal of the laws. So I am asking, is there a possibility, given these two positions taken, for a solution? Now, the Supreme Court is suggesting a committee of 4 people that they have nominated as one potential solution. You are saying that is unacceptable because the mediators are unacceptable. I'm asking then, provide me an alternate solution.
I am saying the farmers find them unacceptable. And for very good reasons. These are people who have publicly committed themselves to backing the government's laws. So it's not surprising that they are found unacceptable. The solution, Rajdeep, is for a government to undo the damage it has done to the Constitution by passing laws which were on the state list. Absolutely, these laws are unconstitutional. It is in the hands of the government to step back from the damage it did in Parliament by forcing through laws, first declaring them, issuing them as ordinances on June 5, then bringing them as bills in September, ramming them through, throwing out 8 members of Parliament. In order to be able to do that, every single thing wrong has come here It has come from the government of India.
You know,
And it is in the ball is in the government's court.
you're saying the ball is
Instead
in
of
the,
which we are
you're
going to
saying
run on the ego of one man.
you're saying the ball is in the government's court, the ego of one man. It's very interesting because last month, during the hearings on this very matter, Chief Justice Bobde even threw up your name as a potential individual who could be an interlocutor. Now, I want to understand, would you be ready to be an interlocutor? The farmers would be more than happy to have you as an interlocutor, but the government would not accept it perhaps. So, I mean, to find names who are acceptable to all is not easy.
Rajdeep, first I should tell you that I have been on government committees and commissions before, and even now, as you know, I'm on the Index Monitoring Committee of the government relating to press freedom. It's not that I'm saying that under these circumstances, I don't think this is the way to go at all. Second, the day that the Chief Justice mentioned my name very kindly, and as I said then and I'm saying now, I'm flattered by it, but I don't think it's the way to go. Rajdeep, would you please look at the history of court-appointed committees? I'll give you 5 if you like, but just one to start with. The Supreme Court appointed the finest committee possible on bringing genetically modified crops into food crops. The top scientists in this country deliberated, researched, came up with the urgent suggestion: moratorium on GM crops, moratorium on those trials until we absolutely know what the heck we are getting into. The government acted as if that nothing had happened. Second, okay, and it still goes ahead. The GEAC is all set with GM mustard. Second, the Central Vista, the court similarly scolded the government of India and then quietly passed the government's thing by majority a month later. What about Rajdeep, our Justice Lodha, who has declined to chair this committee, perhaps because of his experience of having done such fine work on a Supreme Court committee and be subverted and subverted and undermined at every turn on the report that he then produced. So I don't see. Can you give me one example of such a successful committee where it has worked?
No. I am looking for solutions. Is the solution then a special session of parliament and public hearings, wherein maybe the farmer unions are asked to come, as happens in other Western democracies? Maybe that is a solution. Would you accept that? Have a public hearing?
Rajdeep, I've been putting up that solution for years because these 3 laws are an aggravation of the agrarian crisis, but they are not. Repealing them is not going to end the crisis. You're going to come up with another law, another drama, another crisis. For years now, I've been saying the democratic and correct way of approaching this is to have a special session of parliament dealing with the larger agrarian crisis and related issues like the rights and entitlements of women farmers, Dalit farmers, the Adivasi farmers, the Forest Rights Act, all those issues. You desperately need a special session of parliament. And you need to have that. You're absolutely right. We can, it's never happened in Indian parliament. It's not necessary that it shouldn't. We can learn from other democracies that have had public hearings on the subject where those who are the victims of the agrarian crisis stand on the floor of parliament and tell us what their view and understanding of the crisis is, and not 4 committee members who have no credibility amongst the protesters.
You know, the fact
Also,
is,
you know,
the fact is, those Sainath, and you know, this is what critics will say, is that the likes of P. Sainath in the past have themselves spoken out against the mandi system, against middlemen exploiting the system. You've written about it even in the context of Punjab. Now when the government comes in for reform, you object to it because it is the Modi government. How do you respond to that? That this issue has got so polarized, so divisive.
I think you're wrong on one thing. My position has been absolutely consistent on that. I'm saying that you're going to try and move the mandis from one set of middlemen, a large number, to 3 or 4 corporations, which is an incredibly worse idea. I'm not saying that you go only to this. It is the farmers who have been demanding reforms of the mandis and the APMCs for years. But the reforms that you're bringing are not pro-farmer. They are clearly underwritten, written for and by the corporate world. But Rajdeep, I want to take you back to something that's not being discussed in this Supreme Court, in what the Supreme Court had to say, which is simply baffling and unacceptable. It is astonishing to me that the Supreme Court has asked women protesters and the elderly to go back. You know, women are the mainstay of agriculture in this country, and this perpetuates the very bad attitude of not recognizing them as farmers in their own rights. The elderly there are people who have farmed for 5 to 6 decades. You're taking away not just their livelihood, you're taking away their lives. Women, it's like telling the women, you people go home and leave this to us guys. You know, we'll handle it. It's asking the elderly to go back and forget about what their lives depend on. Please see the wording of what was said in the court. We might say in that order that old people and women need not be there in the protest. Please tell them that the Chief Justice of India wants them to go back. I mean, what era are we living in? It's also very dangerous, Rajdeep, what you saw in the court a few days after Defense Minister Rajnath Singh so correctly, I was so pleased when Defense Minister Rajnath Singh said, do not start this canard of questioning the credentials of these farmers. And you have the Solicitor General bringing up Khalistan again.
Attorney
Rajdeep out there on Singhu and Tikri. You know, we have all these slogans of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. In your country, Rajdeep, the Jawan is a Kisan in uniform. The Jawans are already there. When I went to Singhu, the first thing that caught my eyes was a group of people who between them had hundreds of medals, fighting 3 wars for this country, and there to demand their rights as farmers because your Jawan is a Kisan in uniform. And the government is playing with fire. It is playing with fire by doing this sort of stuff. So you really need to start looking at, the questions are, what has been the record of such committees in the past? Can you find one of a Supreme Court committee that has actually done something? Because the Supreme Court has let down its own committees. Second, who will these people mediate with? You know, it's pointless to think about the future when there is not going to be anyone to negotiate with. They're not going to be acceptable. And third, what are we getting into with the government playing with fire and the Supreme Court putting out such attitudes?
Okay. You've made your points. You've made them very strongly, as always, Sainath. And you seem to suggest that the best way forward is a special session of Parliament with public hearings.
And repeal of the law. And repeal of the law.
And repeal of the law. That's your perspective. I appreciate your joining us because we are trying to look for solutions. And your solution is a special session of Parliament with public hearings perhaps being the way forward. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm going to widen this